Vision really overarches and in some ways underpins everything one does as a leader. Because vision really is about showing the future, showing the way to go for people. And I think if you don't have a vision, then it's much too easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day. There's always so much to do in day-to-day life and day-to-day business that without a vision and without the ability to bring that vision to the people you're leading, then things can become very mundane, and in fact you can lose your direction. Now, it's important when you articulate a vision that vision feels realistic, but it also can feel very ambitious. For example, when I joined Cisco 25 years ago, it was just at the inception of the web, so the internet for your normal man or woman in the street. And Cisco, a year or so after I joined, articulated its vision as changing the way we work, live, play and learn. I thought, that's a bit, ambitious. How could we change that so fundamentally? But actually, if you look back now 25 years or over the last 25 years, that's exactly what has happened with the internet. Everything has changed. We work differently, we play differently, we learn differently. I think sometimes visions that are as broad as that can be very powerful in aligning people, and most importantly in aligning the culture of an organization. Because one thing I think is probably more important than anything in business is how you get a culture of an organization to be effective. And I think the vision is right at the front of that. If you're a company, again, like Cisco, who sells technology that often sits inside a cupboard, you could tell people, we want to be the best in any cupboard in any building. Well, that's not a great vision. But if you tell people you want to change the way that you work, live, play and learn, then when people work, they engage with that much more actively. They recognize that the things they do are about actually making a difference. And so I think for you to build a culture where people become aspirational, want to really do things very differently, is incredibly powerful if you can articulate a vision well. And I think then helping that vision to be understood by people requires you to reiterate it regularly. And to be honest, those things like vision are things that you have to continue to repeat and repeat and repeat. We hear politicians doing that a lot, particularly the more famous politicians of the past would continually repeat some of the mantras on a regular basis. And I think as a leader, sometimes your vision as you articulate it, people will hear it the first time, maybe process it in one way, but if you keep bringing it back and relating what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to what that vision means. So again, taking that example of changing the way we work, live, play and learn. If you say, we're engaging in education, we're not just engaging in education to make us slightly better at education, we actually want to change it completely. And so bringing that kind of vision is a very strong first step to articulating and developing a culture inside an organization. And when you start to develop a culture in an organization, it becomes the thing that underpins the sorts of people you hire, the way you people behave, the way that you measure people and so on. You can start to frame all of that inside this particular context. So vision is important. Some people trivialize it and think it's about just setting some kind of long-term goal. It's not really about that. It's actually about giving people a sense of what you want the culture to be inside an organization. And I think one of the things that's useful to do when you're engaging people in a vision is for them to take that and try to understand that themselves. So if you've got leaders working for you, as often you have when you're running a big organization, take that leader and ask them to take the vision and work with their own local part of the organization and see what it means. So if someone's working in finance and accounts inside a big technology organization, they may say, well, that's not really relevant to me. That's what all the salespeople talk about. But actually, if you're really trying to embed something into an organization, you want to take them and say, actually, what do you think about this? What do you feel that changing the way we work, live, play and learn really means? And I think that's important that you actually do that and you give the opportunity for it to embed throughout the organization. So, there are powerful vehicles around vision. And I think, we've seen examples where vision, not just inside business, but inside countries, can make a big difference. I often talk to government about sometimes their lack of vision on some areas that they tend to be a little bit too prosaic. The example I often quote is that If you look at in the early days, not early days, but in the kind of medium days of broadband deployment, all countries were trying to deploy broadband to enable the citizens to connect to the internet. And in the UK, we said everyone's going to have 2 meg to the home. Now, okay, so 2 meg to the home would be nice if everybody had it. But at the same time, people in South Korea and Singapore were saying they were going to put gigabit into every household. Now, whether they actually got gigabit into every household or not, doesn't really matter. What actually happened was they set a very ambitious long-term vision. If you tell people you're going to get 2 meg, you might end up getting 1 meg or half a meg. So you have to stretch people a little with vision. And vision, by definition of the word itself, is about seeing something a bit more broadly. And as a leader, your job is sometimes to see that a little bit further. So in many contexts, whether it's in a big business, whether it be in a smaller business, whether it be in a public sector or a government organization, articulating a vision is the role of the leader to stretch people a little bit further, to get them to think that further away. And I think as you take that and engage it throughout the organization, it's important you then help people to make that real. Sometimes visions in organizations can feel a bit disconnected from the day-to-day. I talked before about the example of, why don't you let your teams think about this more articulately? But actually, when you think about vision, sometimes people can say, yeah, but that's okay to talk to external people, but it doesn't mean anything to me. So what we actually did was we actually tried to reflect with people and say, if you look at a good day and a bad day inside an organization and you ask some people what it looks like, what does a good day look like? Well, funnily enough, when you have a good day, it tends to be about the way people are collaborating together, the way they're changing things, the way they're seeing the future. And then when you look at a bad day, it tends to be when that's not happening and people are not coordinating and not collaborating and not. So really the alignment to the vision is often very much at the day-to-day level. And I think sometimes giving the people the opportunity to think in very practical terms, well, how do I get from a good day or from a bad day to a good day? What are the steps I need to take? And those kind of things are good techniques sometimes to make things real for people. So I think, overall, I think vision couldn't be more important. I think it's the way to help frame the culture of an organization. I think it's the way to then let that culture start to pervade through the organization. And the only guidance I would say is that when you set a vision, is you have to stick with it. You can't have a vision one week and then the following week have another vision and so on. Otherwise, you're kind of just dreaming, really. So I think you have to make sure that as a leader, if you set a vision, take time thinking about that. What are you really trying to get people to do in that environment? Be consistent about it, communicate it on a regular basis, and then embed it into the things you do. The way you measure people, the way you goal people, the way you reward people, the way you call out people. And I think in great organizations, you find people starting to call out the results of their vision as being something that people have achieved on a day-to-day basis. I think that's pretty exciting. So vision, very important, right at the top of what you should do and right embedded into, I think, everything to do with culture inside an organization.